Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new video, and today we are doing what if Jimmy Carter won re-election back in 1980, defeating Ronald Reagan. So we had to do a lot of, and when I mean a lot of changes to the map. It's weird. But here you go, in the 1980 elections. Of course, nothing changes except the map. Jimmy Carter defeats Ronald Reagan 283 to 255 to win re-election. Carter does better in the Rust Belt and in the South, and even parts up in the Northeast in order for him to win. So essentially, he does better in the eastern part of the country. In Carter's second term, after the 1980 elections, the Senate goes 70 to 30 Democrat. The House is 311 to 124 Democrat after the midterms. Both of those are lowered, of course, as it goes 69 to 31 in the Senate and 285 to 150 in the House. And at the end of Carter's term, the Supreme Court goes 6 to 3 conservative as he appoints Associate Justice Alvin Chandler to replace Associate Justice Potter Stewart. This is Carter's cabinet at the beginning of his second term, so there you go. I'm not going to read it off because I don't want to kill myself today. So, I'll give you a couple seconds to read that. Okay. In the 1984 elections, the Democrat primary was very contested. Not so much a Republican primary. There were two little-named candidates. Harold Stassen was just chosen because he was, more well-known. But, of course, Walter Mondale and Ruben Askew. The Democrats wanted, hey, do we want someone who's pretty far out there to the left, like Walter Mondale, running the country, or do we want Ruben Askew, who's very moderate, to run the country, who can also who will also give us Florida as well? But, of course, that doesn't happen. Walter Mondale gets the nomination, and he chooses Geraldine Ferraro as his running mate, and Stassen chooses Jack Kemp as his running mate. But Vice President Walter Mondale defeats Republican Governor Harold Stassen 277 to 261 to become the 40th President of the United States. Minnesota is still the closest state in this election, as both these guys were very popular from the state of Minnesota. In Mondale's first term, after the 1984 elections, the Senate is 71 to 29 Democrat, and the House is 301 to 134 Democrat. After the midterms, the Senate goes 63 Democrat, and the House goes 296 Democrat. The Supreme Court, it goes 6 to 3 Liberal, as Walter Mondale gets to nominate 4 justices. First is Barbara Babcock, who replaces Chief Justice Warren Burger. Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg would replace Associate Justice Lewis Powell, so she's in the Supreme Court early. Stephen Reinhardt would replace Associate Justice William Rehnquist. And Stephen Breyer would be added to the Supreme Court early, as he would replace Associate Justice Alvin Duke. Mondale's first term cabinet, again, there you go, here it is. Yeah, it's nice. I like it. In the 1988 elections, Walter Mondale's first term was not good. He raises taxes a lot more than what people were hoping he would, but a lot of people didn't like him anyway. But yeah, he does raise taxes a lot. He implements a bunch of far-left policies, which kind of puts the country in a bad place. So he gets primaried by Jesse Jackson, who's a moderate. He runs on an anti-Mondale, anti-far-left, anti-socialist message, which doesn't work all that well, as Mondale would win re-election or renomination. But in the Republican primary, George Bush would handily win re-election with only token opposition from Bob Dole, Jack Kemp, and Donald Rumsfeld. Mondale's running mate still is Ferraro, and Bush's running mate would be Dan Quayle still. But George W. Bush, he would not be the CIA director at this point. No, he would be the Republican senator from Texas. Yes, he'd be the senator from Texas. So Republican Senator George Bush defeats Democrat President Walter Mondale 271 to 266 to become the 41st president, but Bush would lose the popular vote in this scenario. Bush's first term after the 1980 elections, the Senate goes 62-seat majority for the Democrats, and the House is a 294-seat majority for the Democrats. After the 1990 midterms, the Democrats have a 63-seat majority in the Senate, and they also have a 302-seat majority in the House. And the Supreme Court goes 5 to 4 Liberal, as Bush gets to nominate 2 justices to the Supreme Court. First is Clarence Thomas, as he replaces Associate Justice William Brennan, and Stephen Williams, who replaces Associate Justice Thurgood Marshall. Bush's cabinet, upon arriving as the president, of course, there you go, here is his cabinet. The 1992 elections, of course, Bush, doesn't get the country out of a bad spot. Instead, he actually adds new taxes after saying he wouldn't, which makes him very unpopular. So, two people run against them. A moderate Ross Perot, who actually would do a lot better in this timeline, and Pat Buchanan, who is actually America First, I guess you could say, a populist, as this is the pathway the Republicans are going. Democrats, however, they are actually seeing a huge slew of moderates running. They are wanting to go into a more moderate turn, as they realize that is more popular. Jimmy Carter would say, "Hey, I love Walter Mondale to death, but he just wasn't the guy. You guys should have picked Reuben Skew. He was the better choice. A moderate is what we need. This country needs, not someone who's too far to the right or too far to the left." He would say that, and they would get behind a bunch of moderates. Bill Clinton being the top guy of them all. But again, Ross Perot would drop out against Bush and Buchanan and run a third party. Again, an independent. Instead of winning 19%, he would actually win 22 to 23% of the vote, winning Maine at large, Maine's 2nd district, and Alaska, giving him 6 electoral votes. But in the end, Democrat Governor Bill Clinton defeats Republican President George Bush and independent businessman Ross Perot 299 to 233 to 6 to become the 42nd President of the United States. Within Clinton's first term after the 1992 elections, the Democrats have a 63-seat majority in the Senate and a 311-seat majority in the House. After the midterms, as you can see here, we have 3 numbers instead of just little 2. As the Reform Party is now a thing, Ross Perot says, "Hey, we're running again. We're starting our own party. We're going to make sure this is right. We are the Populist Party, America First," all that good stuff. Does not right nor left, but forward, all that good stuff. So, of course, Democrats have a 57-seat majority in the Senate and a 257-seat majority in the House. And the Supreme Court is 6-3 liberal, as Bill Clinton gets to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices. First being Hugh Bounds, who replaces Associate Justice Byron White, and Abner Mikva, who replaces Associate Justice Harry Blackmun. And this is Clinton's cabinet upon arriving as the president. There you go. In the 1996 election, Bill Clinton runs unopposed in the Republican primary. Ross Perot decides to run again before, you know what, I'm going to stick with this party, the Reform Party, which he wins the nomination of, clearly. Pat Buchanan runs again, but of course he also drops out, and you'll see why later. But Bob Dole gets the nomination, even though a lot of people wanted Perot, Buchanan, or Forbes. None of that played out. But of course, Alan Keyes would be Bob Dole's running mate, as well as Pat Buchanan being Ross Perot's running mate, which is why Perot does so well in a lot of these races. He does better, actually, winning 28% of the vote to Bob Dole's 30% of the vote to freaking Bill Clinton winning less than 50% of the vote, which shows he does pretty bad for an incumbent. But it's not toward his fault. It was because Ross Perot would do so well. Most of that Perot vote actually would have gone to Clinton. A study would find that Clinton would have won most of the Perot vote. But Democrat President Bill Clinton defeats Reform businessman Ross Perot and Republican Senator Bob Dole 365 to 89 to 84 to win re-election. So Bob Dole runs a bad campaign, as we should not be surprised, and actually gets second behind Ross Perot, which is the second time a third party does better than the actual major parties. Last time being in 1912 when Theodore Roosevelt came second, when the incumbent William Taft got third. Within Clinton's second term, of course, after the 1996 elections, Democrats would hold a 58-seat majority in the Senate, and Democrats would hold a 258-seat and a 258-seat majority in the House. After the midterms, however, Democrats would hold a 58-seat majority still, and Democrats would still hold a majority in both houses of Congress, as they held 253 seats in the House. The Supreme Court would stay 6-3 liberal, but Clinton would not appoint any more justices. Here is Clinton's second cabinet after he is re-elected. Here is his cabinet after he gets a second term. Okay. In the 2000 election, we have a newcomer, Donald Trump, of course, but in the Republican primary, Governor George Bush, John McCain, Alan Keyes, Steve Forbes, Elizabeth Dole, they're your main people in the Republican primary. Al Gore is just by himself. In the Reform Party, Donald Trump and Pat Buchanan both try to fight for that nomination, try to see, okay, we gotta break this two-party establishment, corporate, corrupt system. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump, of course, he's got that Perot vibe, he's got his money, he does very well. But of course, nobody gets the majority in the Electoral College. No, they don't. Of course, there are some faithless electors who try to take their votes away from Donald Trump, but that still doesn't work. But in the end of the day, in the House of Representatives, George Bush would become the president via the House of Representatives, and Joe Lieberman would be the vice president via the Senate. So, within Bush's first term, and after the 2000 elections, the Democrats would hold majority in both houses of Congress, 55 seats in the Senate and 251 seats in the House. After the midterms, Democrats would increase their majorities, except in the House for some reason. They would get 56 seats in the Senate and 247 seats in the House, and the Supreme Court goes 5-4 liberal as Bush gets to nominate one justice, and that is Associate Justice Samuel Alito, who would replace Associate Justice Sue Bones. Here is Bush's first cabinet when he arrives in office. Okay. In the 2004 election, Donald Trump is back again with a vengeance. 9/11 happened. And Donald Trump and the Reform Party, they are furious with both Bush and the Democrats. They're just pissed off. They're done with it. Donald Trump says, Bush, you have failed this country. You knew about these threats. You did. And did nothing about it. John Kerry, you have no room to talk. You voted for the war. You both supported the war. Now look at us. We're fighting a pointless war. We got the guy, and guess what? He wasn't even the guy who started it all. You were pushing a narrative, Bush. It's kind of essentially what happens with Jeb Bush in 2016. Bush is at the top of his game, and then Donald Trump comes in and takes all that fame to himself. Essentially what happens here. But of course, this time Donald Trump chooses Ralph Nader as his running mate and dominates, essentially, barely winning. Reform businessman Donald Trump defeats Republican Governor George Bush and Democrat Senator John Kerry 271 to 42 to 124 to become the 42nd president of the United States. So Trump does fairly well, doing better than any third party ever. And he's not a third party long. He's actually not, but I'll explain that later. In Trump's first term after the 2004 elections, Democrats would still hold control in both houses of Congress. 52 seats in the Senate, 245 seats in the House. The Reform Party would lose all their seats in the Senate, sadly. Boo-hoo. But after the midterms, Republicans would be like, hey, Trump, this is your party. The Republican Party will be your party. Just join us. It'll be your party. And this is the cornerstone of, hey, the Republican Party is now the populist party. Essentially, they're the party of populism. Not conservatism, populism. So there is not a conservative party, there's a populist party in America. So, but Democrats still hold control of both houses of Congress, 57 seats in the Senate, 276 seats in the House. The Supreme Court is 5-4 liberal still. Donald Trump does not appoint any justice to the Supreme Court. And here's Donald Trump's first cabinet, which is made up of both conservatives and liberals. Okay. In the 2008 election, Barack Obama, headstrong, it's like, Trump, doesn't say he's a fluke, but, very respectfully, like, Trump, you did well last time. But, I think it's time for you to get out of here, Get out of here. Barack Obama, I'm going to be the next president. But, of course, Donald Trump does see a primary challenge. Former President George Bush tries to run against him, but fails tremendously. Doesn't even get 20% in Iowa against the guy. So he drops out after the Iowa caucus. So, no major challenge from Donald Trump. But again, Donald Trump still beats Obama, but barely. Popular vote-wise, he barely beats him. But Republican President Donald Trump defeats Democrat Senator Barack Obama 280 to 258 to win re-election. Also, the recession doesn't happen. Donald Trump actually prevents it. He would sign a bunch of spending bills that would prevent the housing bubble from bursting. And there would be a small dip, but it wouldn't be anything noticeable. And it would be back within a couple days. And what we would lose, we would gain back in a couple days anyway. So our economy would be strong. And within Trump's second term, Republicans would finally gain control of the Senate after 2008, winning 51 seats in the Senate. In the House, Democrats still gain control with 255 seats. After the 2010 midterms, however, Democrats would gain control of the Senate, 55 seats in the Senate, 318 seats in the House. The Supreme Court goes 5-4 liberal. I'll explain here in a second, but here's Trump's cabinet at the beginning of his second term. Okay? But of course, Joseph McLaughlin is chosen to replace Associate Justice John Stevens, a conservative replacing a conservative, no big change there. In the 2012 elections, Delaware Senator Joe Biden, after a failed attempt as Obama's running mate, is given the nomination. We need more moderates, and Joe Biden's the most moderate there is. And of course, Republicans name a populist, Ron Paul. Of course, there are some traditionalists who try to run, but they're kicked to the curb, as most of the Reform Party is now the majority in the Republican Party, as Ron Paul would win the nomination. And of course, Joe Biden would choose Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey Jr. as his running mate, and Ron Paul would choose Gary Johnson as his running mate. But again, it's a very tough election. Biden does well in the Rust Belt and in Florida and the West, and Ron Paul would do good in the Southwest. He would do good in the South. He would do well in Iowa and Ohio, in those areas of the Rust Belt. But Democrat Senator Joe Biden defeats Republican Congressman Ron Paul 289 to 249 to become the 43rd president. So, working-class judges became President Biden. In Biden's first term, the Senate, Democrats increased their majority in the Senate and in the House. 57 seats in the Senate, 326 seats in the House. After 2014, though, Republicans gained control in the Senate. 52 seats for Republicans in the Senate, but Democrats still have a majority in the House. 313 seats in the House. And the Supreme Court, it is 6-3 liberal, as Biden gets to nominate another judge, or a judge. That is Elena Kagan. She would replace Justice Joseph McLaughlin. And here is Biden's first cabinet. Okay. In the 2016 election, Joe Biden is uncontested, but of course in the Republican primary there are a bunch of, middle-of-the-road candidates, as people call them, and the America First, or the populist people. Ben Carson would outshine them all, winning actually, and he would get the nomination, surprising a bunch of people. He would choose Governor of South Carolina, Governor Nikki Haley, as his running mate. And of course he would lose the popular vote by 3 points, similar to what Donald Trump did, but he would barely win in the Electoral College, 270 to 268, barely just winning in the Electoral College. So he would become president by the skin of his teeth. In Carson's first term, Republicans would gain in the Senate, 54 seats for Republicans in the Senate, but Democrats would still hold a majority in the House, 307 seats. Republicans would still hold a majority in the Senate after 2018, 52 seats in the Senate, but Democrats would hold 347 seats in the House. And the Supreme Court goes 5-4 conservative, as Ben Carson nominates 2 justices to the Supreme Court. First is Neil Gorsuch, who would replace Associate Justice Stephen Reinhart, and Brett Kavanaugh would replace Associate Justice Abner Mikva. Here is Carson's first cabinet. Okay. In the 2020 election, Ben Carson, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic is hurting Carson tremendously, but Amy Klobuchar would win the Democrat nomination, but a scandal would come about her about how she would treat her staff, how she would harass her staff a lot. And this would not bode well for her campaign, when it tanks her numbers by a little bit. But of course, people still think she's going to win. And she would choose South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg as her running mate. But Ben Carson would pull out all the odds, and Republican President Ben Carson would defeat Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar 283 to 255 to win re-election. Ben Carson does it again. Anyway. In Carson's second term, of course, this is as of right now. That's why that asterisk is there. In the Senate, Republicans would have a 54-seat majority in the Senate, and Democrats would have a 329-seat majority in the House. In the Supreme Court, it would go 7-2 conservative, as actually one of the major things in this election would be how they get to nominate 3 justices on arrival, because 3 justices would die in election year. And of course, the Democrats would be like, no, we're not doing it. Nope, we're not going to allow it to happen. And even a couple Republicans would be like, sorry, Carson, we're not going to let it happen. So Carson would be like, you know what, we'll just wait, and whoever wins, they get to choose. So Carson would, of course, nominate 3 justices. First, the Chief Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, would replace Barbara Babcock. And of course, John Daniel Tinder, he would replace Associate Justice Ruth Ginsburg. And Janice Rogers would replace Associate Justice Stephen Williams. And this would be Carson's second cabinet upon arrival. And there you go. Here is the current Senate map. Of course, not a lot of changes, except that Arizona and Michigan are have a Republican senator. So I think those are the only changes. I could be missing something, of course. Here is the current the House map, and I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of blue. It is a lot of blue, isn't it? It is. And here in the current Supreme Court, it's 7-2 conservative, as we already said. Here is the Supreme Court justices in order of seniority. First, we have liberal Stephen Bryan, conservative Clarence Thomas, conservative Samuel Alito, liberal Elena Kagan, conservative Neil Gorsuch, conservative Brett Kavanaugh, conservative Amy Coney Barrett, conservative John Tender, and conservative Janice Rogers. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the Chaotic One saying, peace.